I would like to give the floor to the African region's representatives and Santos to provide some welcoming remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre. Thank you, Kay. And thank you, Judith, for making yourself available for us as the African region. Thank you, colleagues, for joining. This is an opportunity to be in touch with the co-chairs. And as it was said and clearly defined by the Secretariat, this meeting is just for the regions to have a contact with the co-chairs and say, to clarify if there are still any issues that have to be raised so the co-chairs can take it in account. As you know, is a round of briefings that is happening with all regions. So this is the chance to have for our region. I think it's the first one. So this one will serve also as experience for the co-chairs for the next meetings that we will have. So I think that's all, and I can ask the co-chairs to brief us, and after the briefing of the co-chairs, if colleagues in the region have questions to raise, we'll be having the questions. Since our meeting will last only 1 hour, so we don't have to waste time. Okay, it's with you.
Thank you very much, Santos, and it's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. I don't know whether Judith, she is online. I don't know whether she can also put her video on. She may have issues with the internet, but Judith, would you like to say hello? I have been messenger. It could be she's having difficulties. I'll just plow on then. Right. So this is the first of just a number of short briefings that we're giving to all regions to be as transparent as possible about the next steps as we head to IP 4.3 and ICCM 5 at the end of September. So I'm going to go through, we've got a few slides that are prepared, and we're just going to explain the process that we've agreed and the way forward with the Bureau. Next slide, please. The objectives of today's briefing is really to clarify the process moving forward. It has been a very difficult process in terms of Beyond 2020 because of the timescales over which we've been working, I think, since 2017. And as a result, I think it is confusing as to the progress that we can make and the developments that happen in between sessions as we've been making our way to ICCM 5, which has been delayed, I think, at least twice due to COVID. So this briefing today is to give you an opportunity to understand the process, to ask questions about it, but also to indicate any outstanding sticking points that you particularly have that you would like to make sure or inform Judith and I that you care about that need to be addressed during the negotiations. All of these briefings are open to all UN regions and all stakeholders. Next slide, please. Last month, Judith and I were at the Bureau meeting along with the President, and we explained to the Bureau that after Nairobi and looking at the consolidated document, whilst we felt there had been progress in that the document was becoming more coherent and cohesive and starting to look like a new instrument, there was still a huge amount of work to do moving forward and not much time in terms of face-to-face negotiating time. We weren't anticipating having another intersessional process, but we do have an additional 2 days immediately before ICCM 5. And Judith and I, in looking at the text, have felt that there are a number of areas where we could do some substantial tidying up, if you like, of the work to try and make sure that we have aspects of the non-consolidated document in an area where we can achieve consensus more easily as we go into ICCM5. So with that background, we've decided that the approach that would be the most efficient and the most transparent would be to try and do some work in this period, specifically, but maybe not exclusively, on the targets, the finance narrative, and capacity building. These will be as non-papers, and the IP 4.2 consolidated document will continue to be the basis of discussions at the resumed IP4 meeting on the Saturday in September. So the aim of these non-papers is not to bring substantive changes or radical ideas, but really to serve as tools to enhance what we have, to remove repetition, streamline the narrative. Now, this is particularly true, I think, of the finance area, where we have 3.5 pages of narrative and we haven't had the time to streamline it. Identify where options might deliver the greatest impact. So, for example, we have a number of issues that people care about that are in the targets, in the narrative, potentially in resolutions. And I think we need to understand where we believe those activities might best be placed. And also consider now, as we are seeing the whole package of recommendations from Judith and myself, whether we're achieving the vision that we wish to set out, and whether the strategic objectives and the current targets are all aligned to achieving that vision. These non-papers will be designed to facilitate the achievement of consensus by just providing a little bit more understanding of the context and a possible way forward to improve comprehension as well as effectiveness. And I say this because even as a native English speaker, some of the targets, when I read them, I really could no longer understand the policy intent that was meant by those targets anymore, because the language had become very convoluted. Next slide, please. So the timeline that we have ahead of IP 4.3. This week and on Monday, Judith and I are giving some virtual briefings on the process that we're using to prepare some non-papers. In early September, we're going to again give everybody an opportunity to ask specific questions on anything within the non-papers that they would like clarification or greater understanding about. And then ahead of ICCM5, we're also lucky to be able to have on the 21st and 22nd in-person regional meetings, where I believe we have an opportunity to try and reach consensus in those groups with other regions as we move forward, to have a much more coherent and clean document moving into the negotiations at ICCM5. Next slide, please. So that's more or less it. I'm just now here with Judith to answer any questions you have about the process or any concerns about the process, so that we can try and help you in understanding these documents when they're published, which will be around the 11th of August, about 6 weeks ahead of ICCM5. And I see Judith. Welcome, Judith.
Judith, are you there? She is. I can see that she's there. Thank you, Kay, for your explanation. And okay, you mentioned that there are 3 areas: targets, financial, and capacity building. As a region, we already submitted on targets our views, our positions, and hope that you are looking at that one and consider where possible.
Yes.
And in finance, I don't know if you are waiting for something that we can do, because I see that Olu is there, is the head of the thematic group for the region on finance. So I think anything needed, we are here, as we used to say, Africa is willing to contribute the maximum we can. And yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. Colleagues, the floor is open for any contribution, questions. We still have 45 minutes. Just raise the hand and you can take the floor. I can see Griffins and Olu. Can start with Griffins and Tades as well.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, well, I can see. I see Andrea first. I think she's coming up in my list.
Okay. It's better you handle it.
Is that okay? Sorry, Santos. Yeah, so that'll be
okay. You
fine.
handle it. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, Santos. Andrea, would you like to take the floor and ask your question, please? Do I have to unmute everyone? I don't know. Secretariat, is there a problem?
Oh, I think it should be possible for Andrea to unmute herself and to take the floor.
Thank you. I've now been given rights.
Yeah, I had a little button here. Hi, Andrea. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. Hello, and hello to everyone. And thank you for taking the time and organizing this. I know that it's quite a feat that lies ahead of you. I think what would help me and perhaps others is just a bit of clarification about the non-papers. I know that the idea is to try and streamline and simplify the process through these non-papers. So how are they going to be managed so that it doesn't complicate the text? And is there kind of a systematic approach? Is there going to be guidance? Is there going to be rules in non-rules in them? And in light of that, and this is an issue that I have raised before, and I know it's a contentious issue, is I'm worried that if we don't define the definition of waste and come up with a working definition of waste before IP 4.3, it's going to be really hard to unbracket a lot of text, because so much text is dependent on how we define waste. So I don't know if the non-working paper could also incorporate the possibility of definitions, or at least having some way of getting to a consensus of working definitions. Otherwise, we're going to waste a lot of time at IP 4.3 trying to agree to waste is one. There are a couple others. So those are my thoughts at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. And I'll do each question at a time. I think that could be simpler. So how are we going to use the papers? It's a very good question. I don't think we've got any final proposals. I think, in a way, what you might see happening is that we might be looking to try and package things together so that we can get to move forward. The issues with the different areas are very different. So the issue with the finance narrative, a lot of it is about duplication and streamlining the text. We don't need 3.5 pages of some of that finance narrative. And we also find that some of the things in there which to be fair, is because we asked for everybody to put their ideas on the table, have been thrown into the finance narrative, but in fact, potentially, they're now being seen as a target and could be easily moved across to the business area of the targets. So there's a bit of a mishmash. And I think what we're trying to do is trying to clean up and provide a summary of the elements that we need in the finance narrative. But you could see that some of the finance is now then coming through into the targets. And then it could be some of the capacity building needs to be brought out as an overarching aspect at the beginning of the document somewhere else. We also have, we've had the feedback that some of the capacity building activities are as such that they're very important, but they're not, you don't need to specifically name some of them in the core strategic document. It might be that you would need to refer to them in an annex underneath the capacity building strategy, for example, which is being worked on by the Secretariat. So I think we're still working on how these papers would be used. I think we just, in terms of transparency, recognized early on that we just need to do this work. And we would rather that to achieve consensus that people have text that we think may provide that consensus earlier rather than later, especially since we have a very mixed multi-stakeholder group. So I think that's the rationale behind it. The waste is a very difficult one. I hear what you're saying about definitions, but I've also heard other people saying that you can spend years discussing the definitions for waste. So I think what we need to understand is maybe what the specific exclusions are, if you want to go that route, or we take an approach that whatever your understanding of the waste part is in other areas, we take that forward and we define waste, if you like, through the activities and the indicators that we use moving forward. Does that help, Andrea?
Yeah, it does in some respects. I mean, I know you're also, you know, there are constraints, and it's the constraints that are tying us up a bit. What I'd perhaps, if I could just ask another question linked to what you've just said, is that are the non-papers then going to make non-proposals? So in other words, are they going to, you know, have some proposed text based on someone going through what we've already discussed and agreed to, and what regions and countries are raising, that these non-papers are a little bit more of a guidance? Yeah, I'm still trying to see how they are going to move us forward rather than tripping us up. I mean, I think the intention is good, but it's just to really be clear how it's going to be used. Thank you.
No, and we fully appreciate that. And I'm thinking of, I mean, they're not the basis of the negotiation. Okay, the consolidated document and the text that you're all familiar is the basis for the negotiation. I think what we're trying to do is trying to come up with our understanding. We believe a particular policy intent of a target is this, and this is what we think the language is that would be able to achieve that particular policy intent, because it has become very convoluted. I think we're very mindful where there is clean text and agreed text that we respect that, but we also have in mind that you know, is what we have on the table when we're starting to look at it as a whole, is it really going to achieve the vision that we would like to see of a future free from chemical and waste harm, which is again at the back of this framework instrument is for the future, for the next 10-15 years, and so we're looking at that as well accordingly. So I'm not able to give you a very straight answer at this point.
Okay, can I interrupt you? I think it's better we make 3 questions and then you answer.
I agree.
If this is one by one.
Is that all right? I absolutely agree. We'll do that.
I think
totally, yeah.
Up to you again.
Yeah, thank you. Who's next? Is it Leslie, please?
Okay, Olu is online. Good afternoon, colleagues. And let me
Olu, okay.
Okay, let me also look for this idea of this regional consultation online. And I also want to thank Professor Andrea for her question. And I want to also agree with her that the intention of these non-papers good, but in reality, don't see it helping us further, because it is going to be the basis for discussion. It means that we shall be looking at two papers when we are discussing, because when you look at what we have in the consolidated paper, somebody else will introduce the non-papers. To me, it's going to create more confusion than in the issues. So I think what I believe we should do is to try to create some consensus among regions, areas. For example, in Africa, on the issue of finances, we are very passionate on having a financial mechanism, and I think Bulak is on the same level with us. I think it's only the very few, one or two regions that that's not in support. I think these are areas I think we should concentrate on, so that we can have a convergence, rather than, because the way it is now, it's like some regions say totally no. They don't want to consider any option. They don't want to consider any merit. There is just that we should continue with special program, which is not totally in agreement to us in Africa. And if we go in that mind, then we cannot achieve any consensus. So I think the co-chairs should do more talking to the developed countries on how to subpedal some of their hard decisions. To me, it's like they have made up their mind, they are not ready to compromise. If we look at Africa, for example, we have been making a lot of compromise. On the issue of mainstreaming, we have compromised a lot. Even when we are setting targets, we are making a lot of compromises. And we don't just want to go into a framework that we know right from the beginning that it will not succeed. So I think we need to talk to some of the regions to see reason with Africa, where in areas that we are very, very particular, and so that we can have consensus. But enough papers to me will not achieve any results. It will rather complicate matter, because we have little period during the resume for the regional meeting and the IP 4.0.
Yeah.
If we concentrate, I think it will be good if we just concentrate on the consolidated paper and try to have some agreement. We may not have everything 100%, but by the time you are comparing two papers, if you remember, I think we tried such during maybe I think 2 or so, where there are some people they have international process, and where we are discussing, create some kind of problem. I don't know, but I think your idea is good, but I think it will be better if we can discuss with regions to have some level of understanding on areas that are contentious, so that when we meet physically, we can be able to solve those problems. And I'm very sure when those problems are solved, others can be resolved, because a lot of tests are in brackets, because regions are using it as a bargaining power for their own.
Okay. Okay, lovely. Thank you. Thank you very much, Olu. Tadesse, please.
Thank you, co-chairs. Thank you very much, Key. Yeah, Africa took this process very seriously, and after the Bureau meeting, the Africa region was in consultation, and the consultation is also in a SICOM way, in a multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder approach way, and we were also involved. So I just would like to reiterate what we have discussed after the Bureau meeting, and my colleagues will also complement on this if they want. Africa has some concern, especially the 3 issues of concern that we have discussed. The first one is Africa took some initiative on 2 resolutions. The first one is a global alliance on highly hazardous pesticides, and the other resolution is the code of conduct. These are African initiatives, and it's not a one country initiative. It's a regional initiative for which reflects 54 countries. And Africa was reiterating that this should be considered as a regional concern, and it should be reflected in a way, not really Africa as one country, but as a region in 54 countries, and Africa's burden should be felt by all. And these resolutions should be out. And Africa is expecting support from the Secretariat and from the co-chairs as well. The other thing is the previous SICOM failed because of financial constraints. There was no finance which equates with the problems that we have at hand. And Africa perceived that, and Africa presented some financial suggestions and proposals. It was discussed in Bucharest, but not in Nairobi, of course, not in detail in Nairobi, but Africa would like also to have really a very strong discussion for the Beyond 2020 to be successful. And Africa's proposal to be considered, and if not, even a better one should come with regards to financing. Otherwise, the Beyond 2020 process will also fail like the previous cycle. So these are the main concerns that we have been discussing after the Bureau meeting you have last time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tadesse. Next, Dr. Dada, I think. Dr. Dada?
Hello?
Hello?
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Am I clear?
You are indeed.
First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for this meeting. And I want to assure Kay, you sound a little bit down, but I'm sure at the end of this meeting, you'll be very happy that Africa came first. To tell you the truth, for me, this ICCM we are going for is like receiving an exam. The second one was almost a failure, total failure. And then receiving the exam is so scary that you don't want to fail the second time. But my take on this is that, as Andrea Olu, they have said previously, I don't know what we are trying to achieve with the non-paper. If it's going to be another consolidated ideas from all the regions, as Olu said, it will create a bigger confusion if we can't have a single document in front of us looking at it. Africa, we have done our own bit. And I think the Secretariat will look at all other regions, see what they have done, and see areas of convergence that will reduce the bracket. We have more brackets than sentences. It's so scary. And my take on this, let's face it, okay, and the Secretariat is that if we are going to ICCM with open mind, we are going to be transparent, we are going to be considerate, I think we will have a good ICCM. But if we follow the politics of ICCM, of SICOM 1, is different from the global politics we have now. We should be open-minded, and things politically has penetrated all negotiation that is so scary. It's really scary. I must tell you that. From the views, I was at what's it called, IOMC, and from the feelers I'm getting, we are not in the same political era as we have in the first cycle, and we should be very careful. Africa, we've been very considerate. To tell you, as Olu said, we have been very considerate, looking left and right, and looking at possibilities. And we will also expect the global north to sit back and look at the realities we are facing in the global south, and let us move forward. On the definition, as Andrea said, is very crucial. There are some issues that are very, I don't know how to put it. They are ambiguous. The use of circularity and the use of life cycle. it creates a lot of problem. I wish we can have a footnote to clarify all those points. And on the financial mechanism, as said by the last speaker, is something that is so dear to Africa. And it just didn't come out of sitting down just getting a figure. We need actions to be taken in that aspect. No matter how beautiful the document will be, if you don't have means of implementation, it's back to square one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dada. And I think I've got one more, Gilbert. You have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Co-Chair. And my point is about the waste terminology issue. And then we believe that SICAM, because from our perspective, SICAM is not to be seen as an isolate. We see SICAM more from the region perspective. It is a kind of enabling framework. So when we say the sound management of chemicals and waste, we see under this umbrella, we see the Stockholm Convention, we see the Basel Convention that deal with waste. And we agree that there are many types of waste under the Basel Convention. So in the spirit of the integrated approach, we think that SICAM is a space where we should try to have a strong message that we need to address or to get enough resource to implement all these conventions. So the issue of saying chemical and waste with in plural is so important from that perspective, and we would wish that at IP 4.3 we should resolve this issue. I also agree with all my colleague Tadesse on the priority of the region, that we seem is not really very considered by all the stakeholders, but we strongly believe that with the support of the co-chair and also all the bureau member, we should get other partner understanding the importance of what we are putting forward, because we see financing is so key, is so important, because the sound management of chemical and waste is just a kind of output. And in the equation to have this output that we are desiring, we should learn from our past, that what miss in the equation to have the sound management of chemical and waste is the input. And the most important part of the input has been the finance. And the chemical is a product, it's a commodity that is traded globally. So if in each item we put $1 or something like that, we should have enough money to maybe achieve our desired objective, that is a sound management of chemical and waste after some time. So putting it simply like that, we hope at IP 4.3 people will understand the message and that we have a strong resolution or a strong language. We don't expect ICCM or SICAM alone to have a decision on the financing, but we just take it as a space to have a strong message wherever we should take a decision on how to finance the sound management of chemical and waste beyond 2020. We think about Stockholm Convention, we think about Minamata, we think about the Basel Convention, we think about the Rotterdam Convention. These are the branches of the same tree. And we see that tree is the SICAM. And we need to have a strong message out of IP 4.3. That is my contribution. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Gilbert. Okay, I'll take a pause now. I've got a few more, but maybe shall I just try and answer some of the questions that I've got now, and then I've got Deirdre and Dina. So first of all, so I'll just go on. So Olu, I think I'm hearing again from you about the The intention on paper, yeah, as I say, we've struggled with it. The intention is based on trying to make progress, because I think as I'm going to put people on mute. Could you go on mute? Thank you. So I think some people are not on mute.
I think it's Gilbert.
Oh, is it Gilbert? Okay, thanks. And I do recognise very much, in fact, that the African region, you have compromised, and that where your heart is coming from, and that these are intractable issues that are being faced, and you are often at the receiving end of many of the developments from developed worlds and the profit of the developed world. So I absolutely recognise that. So you have put proposals forward. I think we're trying to go with the crowd. We know that there was an informal dialogue. We know that there's some proposals. They didn't have unanimous agreement in terms of elements for resolutions, but I think that they're there and there is text there, and that's a good start. So I think we can work definitely with that moving forward. Absolutely. When I talk about the finance, I think there's a couple of things that mixed up. I'm looking at just trying to make the document coherent. So referring to, yes, I appreciate, Dr. Dada, what you're saying. There's no good having a beautifully drafted, wonderful English document without having the substantive money behind it. And I think we are trying to work out how we can get solutions to those financial aspects, and how we can also, I think, really incentivize the private sector part through some of the activities that we are doing. And I believe the conversations that we've been having with investors that will then only put money into companies that are doing green things and developing non-hazardous products will also help transform the industry, so that in the future we don't have some of the terrible legacy issues that we're trying to deal with today. I'll try and be more positive too, and have a smile on my face. Definitions, I am very interested. Maybe we can have some discussions on them. I don't know how, apart from defining things through the framework, and whether we could just get some high level exemptions. As you've explained, if you work with Basel, you know how waste is defined there. And I think some of the targets, and if they refer to waste, they will be delivered through the Basel Convention. I think we need to just have an understanding of the benefits of either excluding something. I think it would be difficult to really define and include at this stage. I think it would be useful to have a conversation to better understand what would be problematic for you in not having a definition that's defined through the activities and through the indicators. Yes, and so yeah, mobilizing money, I think that was the last one. So absolutely, and we're trying to get commitments. I believe industry is being also pressured to put commitments forward, and very strong commitments, and working on projects. And I know that the ICCA certainly is putting forward proposals to facilitate that, so that they can dedicate funding for specific projects and help towards capacity building. I have now, I think, Deirdre, please. Do you want to ask your question? Or did you want to come in, Judith?
Sorry, I don't have access. Oh, there we go. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, Kay. It took a while to unmute. My apologies, but thank you for the floor. I think 2 points. I represent the Chemical Allied Industries Association in South Africa. I'm also a board member of the ICCA. To your last point around focusing on projects and dedication to the aim that we are looking at is very much in the ambit of the ICCA. Just 2 points. One is around capacity building, which you mentioned, and I know that there has been a fairly substantive document provided by the ASCCA with its members on, capacity building, transfer of skills, etc., which I think is extremely important. I also understand the issue of the funding, but I think there might be more merit sometimes in providing the capacity building and the skills as opposed to just putting money with respect into a big black hole and doesn't actually get to the particular project. And I speak on behalf of the Africa continent. I'm pretty sure that my colleagues in government are going to disagree with me, but that is what we've seen. The second point I wish to make is around not duplicating what is in the various conventions, in particular Basel and Stockholm. And I really do think we need to, find a way in terms of partnering with each other that we don't duplicate, because that will bring about, further costs to companies and countries in the near future. So those are my 2 points, but I do think one of them, as I say, the first point on capacity building, I think really does play a part, and we've seen that from CAIA, which is the Chemical Allied Industries Association in South Africa, as well as in Africa, where many of the multinationals and local companies that are based in South Africa with their headquarters have been able to transfer skills into many of the countries within Africa, and that has produced very positive results around the sound management of chemicals and also the transportation. So those are the 2 areas I'd just like to raise. Thanks, Kay.
Thank you very much, Deirdre. Next, I see Dina, please.
Before Dina comes, Kay, if you allow me, just
Yes,
inform
sure.
colleagues.
Hello?
Inform
Do you
colleagues.
hear me? Do you hear me? Hello? Do you hear me?
Yeah, I do hear you, Dina, but
Yes.
Santos was just wanting to come in. Did you want to come in, Santos?
Yeah, it's just okay. So when the briefings were agreed during the bureau meeting, we discussed about the participation of other stakeholders, including the industry. So just to say, okay,
Yes.
the regional meetings are open to everybody,
That's
and
right.
even if industry doesn't belong to the region, can join other regions meeting. It is agreed. So just to clarify that one.
Okay.
Because usually our regional meetings are close to us, but this one is different.
Okay.
Just to clarify this one.
All right. No, thank you very much, Santos. I'm going to pass to Dina now, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving me the floor. I would like to have more clarification about the process of non-paper, because I don't understand. Is it the consolidated document that will be the basis for our negotiation during ICCM 5? Because I worry about the targets of the region group, if it will be not included in this documents, consolidated documents. Thank you.
Thank you, Dina. Deirdre, did you want to come back in again? I see your hand up. Your hand came up again, Deirdre.
Maybe legacy hands, and Dr. Dad as well, I think.
Right. Okay. Legacy hands. Okay. Thank you. All right. So, yeah. So just thank you, Deirdre. And yes, in fact, just to repeat what Santos was saying is that these meetings are open to all stakeholders in the region, because we have got a multi-stakeholder, multi-sectoral process. So indeed, I think ICCA have been working on a proposal. And I think that's how again, the challenge we have is some of these proposals, they're being worked up intersessionally. And it's how do we have the negotiating time to deal with those proposals? But it's very welcome that we've got more detail on that proposal so that we can try and see what elements we can take out of that moving forward. So thank you very much, industry, for your certainly willingness to put forward a potential solution, which I'm sure will just be part of a package of solutions as we move towards the end of ICCM5. And then, Dina, just to reiterate, at the moment, the basis for the negotiation is the consolidated document. We struggled in I think Judith and I were struggling in addressing how to address the numerous brackets, because even if we gave participants another 2 weeks, I think we would struggle to clear all those brackets, because there are more brackets. I think Dr. Dada said it, there are more brackets than words on the page in some areas. And I do recognize that if we do address things like the chemicals and waste scope, then maybe a number of them will fall away very quickly. So we have got that issue. But we also have this issue now that in some places the policy intent has been lost, and we were just struggling even to understand how we negotiate that in a way forward. So the non-papers are really trying to clarify where we think we are, and they may be taken on board, they may not be taken on board. It's up to the negotiators in the room. But we have only 2 days left, and in 2 days we have to provide something that can be able to be translated for ICCM5. And even if we worked all through the night, at the moment, we just can't see how to get that document in its current state if we were just to not come up with any solutions or anything, suggestions for consensus, that we could do that within the time available. But we are very, very conscious of how these non-papers are going to be used, and we will develop clarity on guidance regarding that when they're published. I hope that helps. Judith, did you want to come in?
Judith, if you allow me, can I just make a short comment?
Yes, sure.
On Deidre's.
Yes.
Yeah, because when we're talking about finance in our proposal, we Africans we believe, because we're talking about we're talking with the heart. It's coming from inside ourselves. We know the problem we're facing. And we're not talking about funding projects. We're talking about having financial mechanism to implement the issues we're raising. There is no repetition here, because most of the convention, they don't have sound financial mechanism. It's the one we are trying to break it here. And sometimes it appears that we Africans were begging for money. No, we're not doing that. And that company, if it's based in South Africa, they should go around South Africa to see how people are suffering by mismanagement of wastes and mismanagement of chemicals. So we understand, okay, if these comments are coming from industry somewhere else, we should a bit understand, but coming from our region, living with us, seeing us how we are suffering, no, it's not fair. Okay, Judith, it's up to you.
Thank you, Santos. I cannot agree more with Kay's last comments. When we met with the Secretariat and tried to see all the text we have, all the brackets we have, and have to imagine how translators need to do their work into the 6 languages of the UN, we thought that we need a thorough reading and of the text we have in a way to help things moving on, because as Kay said, we only have 2 days. 2 days to have our recommendations. And since the beginning of this process in 2017, we said we want an ambitious one. We don't want to fail in any of the aspects of our previous cycle. So our attempt here is a constructive one, respectful of all the discussions that we heard. That's why not only Secretariat, but our co-facilitators have been involved in this process in consultations with them. So I think that we are trying to do our best to see a paper that we can be the guide for you in these next 2 days of conversations. And hopefully we finally have some recommendations to send to ICCM5. As mindful of that, ICCM5 will have other bunch of topics to deal with, that our recommendations and our set of the resolutions are part of the ICCM5. So we are always grateful for Africa and their commitment in all the steps that we have been doing since the very first IP. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, okay?
Yes. Yes, Dr. Dada, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, I'm sorry for taking the floor. My plan was just to listen to everybody and take my notes. First of all, I like to appreciate what Santos said. I was thinking he was reading my note, but it's not possible for him to read my note from Angola. Africa, we know what we are going through. And I've forgotten her name from South Africa. Her comment is the greatest blow I've ever had on the proposal coming from Africa. As Santos said, we are not begging for money. We are not. We are looking for a financial mechanism, not just cherry-picking projects. We are not here to fund projects. We are asking for a process that will be sustainable for the future. Picking poison center to build poison center is not the solution to the African problem. And I was really surprised, I'm really surprised that the attack is coming from a group based in Africa. As Santos said, as if they don't observe what is really going on. If South Africa is doing well, please let them go to other African countries. What we are asking for is a financial mechanism. To use the word black hole, I feel uncomfortable with it as a Nigerian and as an African. Black hole means going nowhere. So what we have been thinking for 4 years, it means we are just doing nothing. We are not thinking right. Black hole is not a good word to use. Not the color I'm saying, but what black hole means. It means nothing, nothing, going to infinity. We know what we are doing, we know what we are requesting, and we want to negotiate in that part. I mentioned to you, Kay, please, and I want you to take this note. The political scene, global political scene is changing and has changed. Yes. We have to be very sensitive and very aware of what is going on so that we can all work together to have a sustainable future. Things have changed. All what happened in Second One is different from now. People have realized so many things and people are thinking out of the box to solve this problem. Please, I will expect projects are not our problem. Our problem is having a sustainable financing to look at all the problems affecting the continent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dada. I don't know if, do we have someone from Tanzania?
Okay, my hand is up from South Africa when you're ready.
Okay, I'm just looking at the, okay. So Dina, can I just check the list? I have Dina, is that a legacy hand? If you could put that down, Dina. Then, okay, Deirdre, did you want to come in, please?
Thanks very much, Kay. So I've heard the comments, and certainly from a South African position and from an African position, we are very much a favour with what is happening. We are very much in favour of the policy and the financing as long as it is done to the projects. And then to my earlier point around capacity building, we've done that across Africa as well, and it does work well. We're not against funding at all, but I think it just needs to be focused that there's an outcome as per what we are stating from SAICM. So, you know, for me, it's not around South Africa, as colleagues have mentioned, but we can produce, you know, best practices as we have around Kenya, around Ghana, etc., and many other African countries. We just want to work together to make this a positive outcome for the industry. And those are my final points. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you very much, Deirdre. I'd now like to go to, is it Daniel?
Yes, good afternoon, Colleen.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me?
Yes, so we can hear you.
I thank you, co-chairs, for this session, for organizing this session. On my opinion, I'm in line with the other colleagues from the African group, what they pointed out. What is needed, it is really a sustainable financing in order to implement SAICM, the SAICM to come, or the expected SAICM. It is very important for us being a receiver, at the same time being in the region, being impacted a lot with the hazardous chemical, with the waste. For us, we think it is very important to have the financial mechanism which is sustainable. But my other point also, just probably have been having this initiative of having some session with the regions, and we have several regions, 5 regions, on whom for sure I have many to go through them. And probably each region has its own focus. And now you have heard us from the African group. We have our priorities on which we would like to be part of the new instrument. And now, as I understand, you are preparing this co-chairs paper, but also you have different view from different regions. But also we have the consolidated document, the co-chairs consolidated document from Nairobi. And now we're ahead with the system 5 with the plan ahead of having regional meeting, probably the IP43. I just wonder now, when we are moving ahead, which document are we going to use now? This paper, for sure, it has different views from different regions. How will you consolidate those views and then come up with a paper on which might be basis for the discussion during the ICSM 5? Or could it be a CLRP maybe during the SM 5? Just the matter of understanding. Yes, we have this paper with different views, but these views has not been consolidated maybe through contact group composing of all participants from different regions. It might be from views from different regions, on which might not be aware enough to the other region. Then just a matter of clarification, how now are we going with the proposal we are trying to put ahead? Thank you, Co-Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Daniel. Did anybody else want to come in before I just respond? Did you want to come back, Andrea?
Okay, thank you very much. And perhaps it's kind of building on the last comment, and really, I know we're running out of time, and it's the kind of way forward. So I just wanted to know when we are going to receive the non-papers and the guidance on how to use them in relation to the consolidated document. And I'm assuming that they won't be open for comments. I understand that you're trying to actually get people to move forward, which is commendable. So I think it's very, very important that the guidance is very strong and also the explanation of how the non-papers were put together and by whom for the transparency. So when will we receive them and the guidance on how to use them? And thank you again for taking this forward.
Okay, so I'll very briefly, because I'm conscious of time. In terms of the non-papers are being drafted with co-facilitators, myself and Judith and the Secretariat. Okay, based on our knowledge of, we're working closely with co-facilitators because they know what has been happening in the room. But ultimately, I think Judith and I are taking the responsibility for the document. I suggest that when we see the reception to the documents, that may impact handling, and you will get a better idea in the September briefing. I think that will be the opportunity to see as we evolve how we might use the papers. The consolidated text remains the basis for negotiation. Right, that is what we'll be using. We're hoping that the non-paper will provide a way forward that people could see, we could gain consensus through some of the content of those non-papers. Maybe we won't, but it's just a route that we would like to try moving forward. And that's all I can say really at this stage, because we haven't drafted, we haven't completed the non-papers either. So it's very difficult until we see the product. But it should be, there should be no huge surprises. Concepts are out there. It's been a difficult process, but we're trying to pull things together. And I think I'm going to have to leave now, Pierre or Santos, at this point. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for allowing us to talk to you this afternoon. I hope it was helpful and not confusing, but it's always a pleasure to talk to this region.
Thank you very much, Kay. And just a little slide of this meeting is what happened in Nairobi at IP42. There are still stakeholders that are not willing to understand others. We are not yet at the same boat. That's the big issue. I used to raise the same issue in the bureau meetings. That's your job, trying to bridge the differences still having between us and the others. There are some regions which are not getting yet our point, and as you can see, industry at global level are having difficulties to understand us. So our 54 countries, we are together, and we want a clear signal from the others. We are tired of being comprehensive, giving, facilitating, and the others are not doing the same.
Thank you. I've heard that.
And just for your time, for your patience, and we are here to collaborate.
Thank you very much.
We'll stick strongly in our positions.
Absolutely. And just to say, I've noticed that there have been some chat, messaging in the chat, but I haven't been able to follow it. Mm-hmm. If there are any questions, we will try and address those for you as we move forward. Okay? Thank you very much indeed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Santos. Thank you, Kay. And talk to you very soon. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Sí, dime.
Merci.
Sí, un momentito. Sí. Acabando la reunión. Dime.
Bye.
Bye.
Bueno, pues la verdad que largo no.
Tanzania.
Gracias.
Ah, ok, das materialmente